trying times. Over to you, Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair, and g'day everyone, especially those in Victoria, regional Victorians as well, who are masked up. I just had a couple of questions. Sorry, can I just get the reports that you were happy to table? It was the climate change strategy.
And a strategic plan, Senator.
And your which plan?
A 5-year strategic plan.
Okay, no worries. I'm just interested in some work that you've been doing around productivity of the dairy industry across the country, and some assessments that suggest that productivity has been weak over the last 2 decades. And when we understand profitability, you've got the price effect, inputs, costs going through the roof, outputs remaining quite stagnant, and then you've got the productivity effect, which is the adoption of technology and really the work you guys do, which is the R&D piece. So given we're talking about a productivity weakness over 2 decades, not the price effect, I'm interested in understanding how the research and development that Dairy Australia's been doing has actually contributed or hasn't contributed to increasing productivity on farm.
Thank you, Senator. I might ask David to address that, if that's okay.
Thanks, Senator McKenzie. It's a really important question, and this is brand new research that was just done a series of workshops with over 300 farmers in the past month. This is the first time we've really unpacked the ABARES process by reporting that there's been low levels of productivity increase in the dairy industry in agricultural industries in the last 20 years.
Quality of the sound is not great, Chair.
No, just...
Sorry, David, it's really difficult.
Hold on for a second.
Is that better?
Mask aside, I think it's difficult.
That does seem
No,
to be better.
don't do that. Don't do that. Keep that on. I think it's the technology, not the mask.
Well, you've just moved your microphone, I think. Have another go now.
Is that helpful? Is that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, try that.
Great. So what you're referring to, Senator McKenzie, is brand new work. We're just finalising now. ABARES showed quite clearly that the dairy industry has not had large productivity increase in the last 10 years, and we wanted to investigate that further. We've just done a comprehensive body of work. As you explained, we're trying to work out the difference between terms of trade effect and real productivity drivers. And we are seeing, what we're seeing is that dairy farmers are very technically efficient as they are now. And the challenge is to increase productivity further. That is quite a significant challenge for an industry that is also already very technically efficient. But what we are seeing, underneath that, what we are seeing is that we're making great strides in animal productivity. The cows of today are very different to the cows of 10 and 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Amazingly different. We are seeing some amazing increase in productivity in water and water use and use of water technology. And there's some really good research happening in that space. What we're particularly looking forward to, because we do understand that so much of the dairy industry's productivity is based on grass and food-based productivity. We really see a big productivity improvement coming from 15 years of R&D into improving grass. We see happening in the coming decade, and we're very much looking forward to improving productivity on the basis of growing more grass and high quality grass for dairy cows as a consequence of our R&D.
Okay, so is increasing productivity of dairy farming one of the KPIs you assess the research and development projects you invest on behalf of levy payers?
Well, we obviously, our aim as an organisation is to increase the productivity of dairy farmers.
Of course.
And so what we do is we look at individual projects within that, and we don't total factor productivity in the analysis that we've just been doing is very different from looking at an individual project and saying what would the project cost and what would the project deliver in value to farmers. So two different, if we have a portfolio of projects that are all going to deliver value to farmers because that technology is going to pay off for farmers, we would expect that to lift productivity. And then, but we make the total factor productivity separately as a pure economic study of the industry, as opposed to individual projects and their payoff.
Well, don't think that actually answered my question. So when projects come before Dairy Australia to fund or not fund, and I just want to, just remind me how much dairy farmers themselves, levy payers, put into Dairy Australia. So
in our last annual report for the year ended 30th of June 2020, dairy farmers paid $31,643,000
beautiful.
of dairy
Thank you.
farmers.
Thank you. So that's aside from the taxpayers' contribution, $31 million, and you invest in a range of projects and programs that the government expects to lift the productivity. You can't do a lot about inputs. That's the other side of the equation. When you assess those, I'm assuming you run them through a matrix or something. Does that include productivity gains on farm?
We look at it as straight up value proposition. It's all about, it is about making productivity gains. It's about value to farmers in terms of value creation on farm. And so we look at it on a financial basis. Will we be able to deliver more value from that project than the cost of that project?
Yes.
Productivity is how much output over how much input. So they're slightly different. Our expectation is when we deliver value from each of those projects, it will lift productivity on farm.
Okay, just on notice, if you could just supply the committee with the assessment framework.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
In your annual report 1920, you identified project spend in manufacturing, innovation and sustainability. What's the dollar figure investment in this strategic program? I think it's page 19 of that annual report. So you've got it in, it's got program investment, but you've shown it as a percentage rather than a dollar figure, and it's under 5%. So manufacturing, innovation and sustainability, to me, looks like it's less than 1%, and I'd like to understand what's that dollar figure.
Yeah, Senator, if I can answer, Charlie McElwain. The Manufacturing Sustainability Program is now a cost-neutral program within Dairy Australia. It is largely co-funded by residual income from the old Dairy Innovation Australia Limited funding program, as well as some additional co-funding from organisations including Food Innovation Australia Limited and some other project funding that's received to do work in sustainability through packaging and waste manufacturing. So at the moment it's largely cost neutral. We only pay for a small part, a 75% of one FTE.
Okay, so just on notice then, a dollar figure, please, that does. So, Charlie, does that program delivers research and development outcomes only for the post-farm gate processing sector, the manufacturing sector? And
that's correct.
Is that sector the one, sector that actually contributes the funding to this program, not the levy payers?
So the processors who are involved in that program, they pay a membership fee to be a part of that program in conjunction with some of those external funding opportunities that we've tapped into.
How much is their membership fee?
In total, it comes to about $40,000 in total, plus there's a webinar series where it's a UK webinar, which contributes that.
Is that each processor pays 40 grand or?
No, not in total. And the total cost of the program in entirety is, I don't have the figure on me right now, but it is roughly around $150,000 to $200,000. As I said, which is cost neutral in terms of the project spend. based on the external funding that it has achieved. It focuses on those areas of sustainability for the processes which, if they were unable to get on top of the waste issue or packaging sustainability, it would have a full impact on the farmers supplying into those processes. So things like waste management up in the northern Victoria, for instance, where working on salinity issues, which if we can't get on top of those issues, it obviously poses risk for competition and the capacity in the region. So that's where that program really focuses on. It's not about manufacturing profitability per se. It's more about their ability to continue to.
Thanks, Charlie. I think when you get sent the Hansard, you might have to fix up a few gaps with the tech, but I think I understand what you're saying. So you would argue this investment benefits levy-paying farmers by ensuring their processes are sustainable in the waste management?
Correct. That's the basis upon which we invest. In saying that, as I mentioned, just to reinforce, it has moved to being project neutral in terms of the costing behind that project.
Senator, just so there's no confusion with Hansard, that's David, not Charlie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell, of course.
Sorry, it is when there's no one's face on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the post-farm gate sector contribute funds towards marketing?
Yes, Senator McKenzie, it does.
How much?
This latest campaign, they're providing order of $250,000 in our marketing partnership.
Okay, and how much is the overall campaign going to cost?
I don't have that specific campaign, but I can say our total marketing budget for this last financial year is $7.8 million. $7.8 million.
Okay, so they're contributing under 5%.
That's correct.
And in terms of the profits made in the dairy industry, would we say that the processors get around 5% and dairy farmers get 95%?
These arrangements aren't based on relative profitability.
No, clearly not. That's a pretty good return on investment for processors. $250,000 in a $7.6 million marketing budget. But we'll look at that another time. So R&D, with the retraction by state governments out of engagement programs on farm, what are the challenges that you've identified for uptake of R&D on farm?
That's a process that's been happening over a number of years, and so what we've done is we've developed 8 regional development. We invest in 8 regional development programs. Those 8 they cover the 8 dairying regions of the country. We've increased, in our own right, we've increased our headcount in each of those 8 regional offices. We've expanded our offerings to make sure that the R&D is effectively communicated to farmers through each of those 8 RDPs.
And do you assess that it's been effectively communicated by the uptake of that R&D on farm? How do you know it's been effectively communicated?
Newsletters. Every event, every session that we evaluate. So we look at for all of our major activities, we do set targets for the level of activity in each region, and then we look at attendance and we look at satisfaction of attendance. And we look at the efficacy where farmers self-assess after being involved in those programs, their satisfaction of that event and their likelihood of make changes on farm as a consequence of being involved in that activity.
Okay. With your climate change strategy, it sets out the outcome that by 2025, dairy businesses will successfully be adapting and evolving to meet future climate challenges. You outline the measures of success. They're on page 15, I think, which, are a range of measurements. how are you supporting farmers to adopt R&D that will help achieve these outcomes?
So again, our real focus is on delivering extension and information services through each of our 8 regional development programs. We're very deliberate in creating a climate change strategy to focus our attention on climate. We're very deliberate on setting those outcome targets. And each of our 8 regional programs now have, that's cascaded through into work programs across Dairy Australia and across 8 regional programs. And we are now looking to resource and increase resourcing in our regional activity to ensure that we can effectively communicate with farmers and meet these outcomes.
I'm just reading the success indicators, and the dairy farmers I know, if this is actually going to add to their productivity and profitability on top of the other issues. I know Dairy Australia are very keen on this. You've obviously consulted with SFOs and the NFF and the like. Is there broad industry support on the ground amongst dairymen and women for these initiatives as outlined, I think, on page 15 of the strategy?
So this strategy is over 12 months in the making with significant consultation.
Yep.
And I think if you look at all of the high level ambitions of this strategy, I think they're consistent with where farmers would want to be. It speaks to being able to thrive in a warmer and more unpredictable climate. I think that directly references the way farmers see the climate. It's warmer and more unpredictable, and they need to be able to succeed in a climate of that nature. We believe we are already elite on a global scale for our methane emissions, our carbon emissions. We want to stay in the elite category. We want to remain in the top 10 globally. So the climate change strategy speaks to preserving our elite status globally. It speaks to the sustainability framework's a real strength of the industry. And this really speaks to the way the industry considers sustainability and the importance of making sure that we're seen as a strong global player in sustainability.
Yep.
And it speaks to investing and demonstrating to the market that the industry is committed and working constructively towards targets. So for mine, Senator, I think this lines up, particularly portraying the priorities in that order. I think that really does line up with the way farmers do see climate change as an issue.
No, I'm not saying climate change isn't an issue for our primary producers. We all know that, and being able to make a profit in that sort of environment and play their part is something they're working towards. My question is, these success indicators on page 15, have they been welcomed by primary producers? And you can tell me how you've actually consulted with actual farmers and the breadth of support you have across industry, because my understanding is you don't. But I'm happy to be corrected. Just finally, the Dairy Farm Monitor Project collects data from 75 farms across 3 regions in Victoria. I'm told that farmers selected to participate are generally the higher performing farmers and therefore not necessarily representative of the broader industry. How are the farmers who provide data to the Dairy Farm Monitor Project identified and selected?
So I think it happens a little bit in reverse, Senator, where we ask farmers to participate. So the challenge with this project is we have farmers involved that self-identify,
Yep.
show interest. So it's not a statistical sample. It's not. It is.
It's not meant to be a representative sample.
It's never claimed to be and not meant to be a representative sample. It's meant to be putting out an expression of interest of farmers to participate. In reality, we get farmers of a wide range of business performance participating. And it's a fantastic monitor project for looking at what is happening in the industry with farmers that that choose to participate.
So therefore, you've got to sort of, I guess, view the outcomes of this project in light of that. Someone who has a fantastic on-farm system, happy to share it and happy to shout about it, it's really not indicative of what's actually going on in the dairy industry, is it?
Well, I think in fairness to the farmers participating, there's a range of farmers that are really using it to improve their business, as well as farmers that are already in a position of being successful in their business and wanting to benchmark their business. So the thing that's of interest to me, Senator, is ABARES side by side with this has run a statistically representative sample when they run business analysis. And the reality is our farm monitor project isn't that different to a statistic sampling of ABARES, which says to me if there is any bias, the bias can only be small.
No, thank you. That's a good answer. Thank you, gentlemen.
Terrific. Thank you. Senator Wish-Wilson.